Friend James Shaw, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I'm so excited about today because we're going to have a conversation that honestly, sometimes people are like, we shouldn't talk about that, but we should. And it's called dual career because so many of you are doing more than real estate as your job. The state of the market has caused some of you to add a job in addition to your real estate business. Some of you love working both jobs, and that's why you haven't quit. Maybe you're waiting for a pension or you just want to finish something out that you really enjoy. And others of you are in transition. But we got to talk about how to make it work. And we found somebody that's doing that, and I'm so excited. Rhonda, how you doing?
I'm doing great, James. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for joining us. Would you introduce yourself to everybody, let them know who you are and where you are and a little bit about you, and then we'll get started.
Sure. So my name's Rhonda Sweatt. I'm from Columbia, South Carolina. There it is, go Cox. And grew up here. I actually the other career that I have that May of next year will be 30 years is I'm a respiratory therapist, and obviously no one knew what that was until COVID. I have just found that basically taking that life, that medical life that's very algorithmic, and laying it over real estate or vice versa has been very beneficial for me. I don't see myself stopping that anytime soon. But it has been just a way for me to get into that. The other piece to this is my band life. Did high school marching band, did University of South Carolina, marched drum corps, taught drum corps, still teach marching band for band season. So there's actually a third little dynamic thrown in there that obviously is very helpful. That's the motto of no matter what, every day, get up and go to work.
Yeah, you do. And 30 years in the business as a respiratory therapist, I mean, this is something you love to do and you want to keep doing it. And yet at some point you said you also want to do real estate. Will you tell me what led to that decision? And then we're going to talk about how you make both of those things work.
So ironically, what I have found is respiratory therapy was an associate's degree program when I started, and now it has evolved into a bachelor's and then into master's. I don't want a bachelor's to simply sit behind a desk. I'm not designed that way. I needed to be gut honest with myself and go, I need something that keeps me on the move. And real estate was, interestingly enough, when I bought my house 10 years ago, I told my agent, I was like, listen, I'm going to start doing real estate because there's got to be an easier way than what we're doing. And I think there's a way to make that simple. And I just, once it materialized, I just decided I'm not going to get a bachelor's in respiratory. I'm going to do real estate instead. And so that's kind of where that magic sort of happened.
And you got your license in 2019.
Correct.
And, it was kind of like this, I don't know, the way that I would think about it was like, let's tiptoe into the business and kind of see what happens. I mean, is that kind of was the strategy because you still have this full-time job?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The gentleman who's in the job that I'm in at the hospital currently is now a licensed agent, owns his own brokerage. And he's one of the first folks I called and said, hey, this is what I want to do. Seems like a pretty easy transition, or at least, my medical background helps me. What do you think? And he's like, oh, absolutely. I called my real estate agent who closed my house, and both of them had the very same thought. Are you going to stop respiratory? And of course, emphatically, I said no. And they said, okay, well, good luck. You expect to close 3 homes in your first year, which kind of gave me a number to aim for. And that was kind of where it started. And so I just kind of springboarded from that.
Yeah, I think that, and I spent 8 years as a team leader, and there were times that I thought, if you want to be successful in this business, you have to quit everything you're doing and go in on real estate full time. That's not a realistic option for a lot of people. And then for others, it's just not something they want to do. Like you like your job, but you wanted to add to it. And so I think team leaders who are watching and brokers who are watching, you do people like Rhonda a disservice when you tell them they can't do it because you're proving that you can. They gave you this number of 3, but you sold 6 the first year.
Correct.
Then you went to 8 in 2020. Yeah, in 2020 you did 8. 2024 you did 24 deal, or 2021. Let's just start all that over. In 2019 you did 6 deals. In 2020 you did 8. In 2021 you did 24 deals, which was a huge year for everybody. Right. And then business fell back like it did for a lot of people in 2022. Where you did 18 deals, about the same last year, and you're on track for 18 to 19 transactions this year. I would say that's a really good business when you also work at the hospital full time.
Correct.
So tell us how you do it. How do you create this balance between a full-time gig at the hospital, you're also blocking and helping the marching band, and then now you're selling, a home every other week?
So I think for me, realistically, was number one is the calendar. That calendar, it's not a live or die by. I think for me, my mindset about the calendar is that it has to have a little bit more be a little bit more fluid. So yes, things are on the calendar. However, sometimes they do have to morph, and I have to be okay with that. If a client can only see something on a Saturday that I'm working that weekend, I can make adjustments and say, hey, we can see the house at 4. I got to be at work at 6. We can do that because it doesn't change much for me.
Do
Um,
you find that people are acceptable to that? That when you say, "Hey, I can't meet at that time, but can we meet at this time?" They just say, "Yeah."
Absolutely, because I'm
I
very transparent up front, and I let them know I work at the hospital and my schedule is this.
Okay, let me ask you about that. So you're not hiding the fact that you've got a full-time job in addition to the business.
Not at all. I'm embracing it, and they do too.
Okay, well, tell me what the reaction is, because I think the initial thought would be, well, people don't wanna they're gonna go, "Well, wait a minute, are you taking this serious?" And stuff like that, but they're not doing that?
No, I think realistically too, I think I'm upfront with them on the front side, and then with my co-op agents as well. I let them know, listen, if you don't ever get me via a phone call or a text, I need you to remember 2:30. And that pause, and I say, and here's why. That's when I get up and have the coffee, and the texts and emails and calls will be returned at that point. They kind of chuckle, and I think they probably have a little bit of apprehension. They don't air it. And then once we get to the end of it, they're like, man, thanks for a great transaction. And I'm like, you're welcome.
Yeah, because what we didn't tell people is you're doing 13-hour shifts overnights,
Correct.
at the hospital, so your sleep schedule is fun. I did when I produced news, I did overnight for a while. I don't It's crazy, Rhonda. I don't know how you do it. My mom, labor and delivery nurse for 40 years, 7 to 7, 7 p to 7 a. Don't know how y'all do it. It takes a special person. It really does. But the lesson here is just be honest with people about your schedule, co-op agents and clients. And as long as you show up in a professional way and set expectations, it seems like it's all systems go.
Correct, correct.
Yeah.
Everybody's been really receptive. Knock on wood, I haven't had anyone who has just totally balked at it. And if they did, they didn't let me in on it. They did it to themselves, or they just kept it internal and didn't really balk on it.
All right, so you got to be really purposeful about your schedule, but imagine you also have to be pretty purposeful about your lead gen efforts because like I said, you're going to do, 18, 19, maybe 20 deals this year and you've got limited time to be able to lead gen and go work with people. You've got to be pretty calculated on how you're lead generating. At least I would think you would. So tell me what are your sources? How are you finding the business?
So basically my biggest lead source is going to be from the hospital because those, 1:30 in the morning, I get a notification in our hospital notification system that trauma's coming in, and the trauma team comes down, myself included, my RT that I'm helping that night. And somebody looks at me and goes, you're in real estate. And I'm like, you're correct. And they go, I need to talk to you about selling a house. And I'm like, what day do you have? Trauma's 10 minutes out. Tell me what day you have, and I'll make it work. The referrals have actually started to kick up for me, which is awesome. That's from the band world, from this community of course, from gay real estate, multiple sources. And then of course, every day I get up and I'm working on making those calls. Half of those calls are done for this week for my DTD2. I'll work on that other half for tomorrow.
You're pretty scheduled, which helps with this, which that's your background. You've had to be pretty scheduled.
Correct.
And so you just mentioned DTD2. For those of you who don't know, that's a database management program, basically, that Steve Schlueter and Tammy Youngstown taught us in their course, Never Ending Referrals. But it's you take your database, you divide it up by 2 letters every week by last name, and that kind of guides you who to reach out to. It sounds like to me, Rhonda, that this is a really important piece for you to stay in front of your people. Tell me about that.
It is, and so what I'll do, it's kind of a smattering of things. It's text simply because I may or may not know if it's someone hospital specific, and I don't know if they were on nights that week. Some of our folks rotate. I may do a Facebook comment on them to kind of change my algorithm in Facebook. So I'm looking at different folks. It could be a Facebook message. It could be a regular text. I actually don't do physical calls unless I get something or I see something that may be more of a care call. I like those a lot better than the, hey, how are you? I had someone respond today and go, this seems very random. And it was a hospital person. And he's like, we transferred somebody to you. I thought that was what this was about. I said, no, just checking on you because I haven't talked to you in a while. Very simple. There's no need to make it complicated. It's just very simple. And then when you get something like that, that seems like, well, why are you calling me? This seems very odd. Nope, not odd. Just hadn't talked to you in a while.
This is great. So what are then some of the systems you use to stay out in front and talk to people? Because as dual career, you got to balance both. You got to be purposeful in your time. I imagine you've created some systems that work for you that allow you to really make sure you're talking to the right people at the right time.
Well, I think realistically too, it's knowing the folks on the other side that you're trying to have a conversation with, however that conversation takes place. So, James, if I knew that you worked night shift, you don't care when I send you the email to follow up, or if there's something that I need to, if we're in a relationship and you're my client, you don't care when I send that email. You're probably not even looking at the time. You just know that there's an email you either need to respond to or an action step. So I think a lot of it for me is just figuring out what that looks like based on the other person on the other side. And I try to mold to whatever it is they need, so that they feel like this is specific to them. And it's not something that I'm doing for everyone, if that makes sense.
No, it does, but I want to get into the nitty gritty because I just can't imagine that you're a wake up and wonder kind of person about what should I do in my real estate business today. You seem pretty systematized. So
Right.
for a dual career person who's struggling to balance it all, what strategies are you using that they could go take and use?
Well, I think part of it is for me is picking up those pieces. So if DTD2 is not something someone had, just picking 5 folks out of your phone each day, and making it a point to get in touch with them. My schedule is pretty different in the fact that I work 3 days a week. Yes, they're 13 hours, and yes, they're nights. However, I'm able to take those days that I'm off and dedicate it to real estate, getting that DTD2 in, following up with those folks, making sure that the deals that are current, making sure that I've got everything set up for final walkthrough on Monday, for a closing on Tuesday, making sure that I've got the contractor out for my listing that needs a couple of things done, making sure that's getting set up on the appropriate date. So those emails and those things can kind of take place once that DTD2 is taken care of. Any sort of trainings I'd like to attend. Elevate, prime example, that needed to be worked in and vacation set up for that. So a lot of times it's taking time back from the hospital to making sure that I have those things set up. One day a week, I'm off from the hospital. I'm intentional about taking that one Thursday off, and then I can get things done. And that Friday I normally wouldn't have, I now have that to fill in as a fill in. So if I need things done, I can get them done on that particular day. I'm
You
getting
have to
paid
be
for it,
pretty,
might as well.
yeah, no kidding. You got to be pretty scheduled, I would imagine, that
Yes.
you're you're blocking stuff out. And then keep in mind that in your case, you're asleep from 8:30 in the morning to 2:30 in the afternoon when the rest of the world is up. So really balancing that out and making it work matters. Okay. Well, what are some mistakes you've made in this trying to do all things for all people all the time, Rhonda?
Oh gosh, listen, some of it is, with my calendar, I use something called Shift Life. It's big in the medical world. I like it because you can change things to different colors. I'm not a fan of the regular calendar I have on my iPhone, but I do like Shift Life. I can change the colors, make real estate is red, the hospital is green, anything to do with, say, pool and hot tub maintenance is blue, band is blue, just different things like that. And I can set it to where it goes off the day before. So my day is basically I'm thinking about the next day within the day that I live. I've put my wife on the schedule, and that is I don't like how that feels, but realistically, it's time dedicated to her. And if it's not on the calendar, it does not exist. And I know that seems really weird. She exists 24/7 in my life, but sometimes um, I think that's the other part of it too is having your partner or whoever you're with or the folks that are important to you, they understand your goal and understand how important it is to you, and they'll help you achieve it.
I think it's important. Put your spouse on there. Terry is on mine, and your wife's on yours. And I have Naomi, our daughter, is on my calendar because they're important too. We put the important things on our calendar. I think it's really good. Have there been some changes you've made over the 5 years that you've been balancing both that have been helpful? Maybe some things you thought were going to work, and then over time you realized maybe you need to do it differently.
So, part of my asset and part of my fault is being rigid. I say rigid, but very stick to a schedule. What I have found is that with the hospital work is that I can do some of it together, hospital and real estate. And it was almost like I clocked in and out of each one. I'm a realtor all the time. I'm also a respiratory therapist all the time. So when someone reaches out to me from an RT standpoint and they need something, but I'm in a real estate scenario, I will get back to them and I'm going to make sure that they have what they need. Does that leave a whole lot for me? Sure, it does because I get up every day and I work out. I'm trying to pay attention to what I eat and be more conscious of that because, again, that almost 50 lifestyle, your metabolism stops. So I'm having to navigate that as well. So I think a lot of it is just figuring out what works and figuring out what doesn't and giving yourself some grace.
Yeah, no doubt. All right. In addition to that, you get on our pivot calls and then you're part of the Inspire Collective, which is our private mastermind. I'm curious about how being part of Inspire has helped you.
Oh, listen, I mean, the fact that I feel like I've got sometimes it's just a matter, I think, no matter what field of work you're in, if you can put your hands back and feel like there's someone there, there's somebody there, whether it's somebody you can get on the phone with, an email, pick up something. It doesn't matter. I feel like I've got a tribe and a sense of belonging, which ironically enough, you take that back to when I was a kid. Band was what gave me that sense of belonging. This is doing the same thing simply in my adult life.
Yeah, I love that. And for those of you that aren't members, you can come check it out. jamesdshaw.com. I'll give you all the info. We meet every Tuesday at noon Eastern to walk through stuff. Rhonda, I imagine you usually watch the recordings because you're sleeping at noon Eastern most days, but
Well, the good news is I'm off every Monday and Tuesday, so I'm
perfect.
right there. I'm
You can
right
be on them live, but they are all recorded if anybody wants to watch them. So if you want info on Inspire, jamesdshaw.com. Rhonda, some final thoughts just from what you've learned to help that dual career person out there who's wondering how they're going to make it work. What's your final thought you want to share with them?
I think realistically, it's start with what's in your phone. Start with the people who know, like, and trust you. Call 5 people a day. If you can't get 5, like you said this morning, if you can't get 5 and you get 3, it's still a win. But the point is, that then becomes what you will accept, and just do that every day, and then increase it as you can. Talk to people. Just talk to them. Let them know what you do. They really want to help you win, but if they don't know what you're doing, they cannot help you. So please just reach out to the people that know, like, and trust you first. And then we'll get to the FISBOs and expireds and all the other things that'll come later.
Rhonda, you're the best. Thank you for sharing with us and for helping people out. I appreciate you, and we'll see you around. Be well.
All right, James, thanks.